Hello, my name's Martin Greenwood. I'm the Assistant Librarian at Airedale NHS Foundation Trust, and this is the second video I have made in a series on search skills. In this video I'm going to consider what misinformation is, how to spot it, and how to avoid it. I will consider social media accounts, Wikipedia, fact-checking websites, reverse image searches, and how to limit Google searches to a specific type of website. Misinformation means false, incorrect, or misleading information. It could be partially true or entirely made up. It is a big problem online. Unlike traditional media, anyone can share information online, regardless of their intentions or their fact-checking skills. Due to the widespread use of social media, it is very easy for information to be shared, and in social media environments, perhaps not everyone is going to make a sensible appraisal of the information they share. This is the Twitter profile of Mariana Spring, who is a disinformation reporter for the BBC. I recommend looking at her tweets as she posts some good advice about identifying misinformation and disinformation. In this video, Mariana is asked to distinguish between misinformation and disinformation, and she says that misinformation is slightly less deliberate, that the people sharing it might not realise that the information is not true. I've come up with my own definitions of misinformation and disinformation based on my understanding, and I'll present those to you now. In this BBC article, Mariana identifies 7 types of people who start and spread viral misinformation. The 7 types includes relatives and celebrities, and you might not expect to receive misinformation from those people. But even if you admire or respect the person that posted information, it doesn't necessarily mean that the information is true. They may have shared it without checking it themselves. You will find many credible sources of information on social media, but these are likely to be known outside of social media. I'm thinking of professional organisations, academic institutions, and reputable journalists. You do have to be careful, even when you think you have found a trustworthy source of information on social media. Fake accounts do exist, and they can sometimes look very similar to the real thing. How do I know that this is a genuine account that I'm looking at now? Well, I can see that in the bio there are links to several BBC accounts, and there is also Mariana's email address at the BBC here. I can see that she joined in 2012. You can't really tell from the date on its own whether it's a genuine account, because it could have been created back then with a different profile picture, with a different name, with a different bio, and that could have changed since then. Now, Twitter does have a blue tick badge that it displays for verified accounts. At the time of recording this video, the account verification program is on hold, so it could be that Mariana hasn't been able to get blue tick put on her account. But if you look at her tweets, they do all relate to her position as disinformation reporter at the BBC, so there's nothing particularly unexpected. But I would say if you're trying to identify whether an account is genuine or not, have a look at more than just the first couple of tweets you see. See if there's anything that's incongruous, that looks out of place. You could look to see if there are any grammatical errors, or if the style of writing changes between tweets. If it's a fake account, it's possible that more than one person might be writing the tweets. And just a few things to note about the blue tick. This is information from Twitter. So it says that the badge appears next to the name on an account's profile. If you see the badge anywhere else, such as the photo, the bio, or the header photo, then that's not the official verified badge. That's something the user has added themselves. If you're in doubt about whether an account is genuine, you could go to the official website for the organisation or individual and have a look for a link on there to the social media account. For example, this is the BBC News website. If I scroll down to the bottom here, it says find us here, and there's a link to Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And that's taken me through to the official account. On other websites, they might not have the images, but there's likely to be a link somewhere on their website to their social media. We should all act responsibly when posting and sharing information online. If we're not sure if something is true, then we shouldn't post it. We shouldn't share it with other people. Mariana Springs suggests that you should think about how something makes you feel before you share it. She points out that accurate information is often quite boring. If a tweet or post that you read makes you upset, angry, or excited, that could be a sign of misinformation. I'm going to look now at a couple of fact-checking websites. Snopes is an American site, and the information that it fact-checks tends to be news stories that you might see on social media. If there's a particular story you want to check, you can type in some of the keywords relating to that story into the search bar here and see if an evaluation has been done on that article. I'm going to show you this evaluation as an example. It's about privacy settings on Facebook. And they use a rating here, so it says false for this particular story. Sometimes the rating might be a combination of true or false, so a story might have some truth to it, but it still might be misleading. After the rating, there's information about where the story originated from. And there are links to official policies on Facebook that will actually provide the correct information that you need. This is another fact-checking website. This is fullfact.org. And it says here that Full Fact are the UK's independent fact-checking charity. So, unlike Snopes, Full Fact is UK-based, and most of the information they fact-check comes from the UK, things that you might have seen on the news or read in newspapers or seen online. They cover a lot of government policy, things that politicians say. On the homepage, they tend to pick a couple of stories and they give you the claim in quotation marks and the verdict. And then if you want to go into more detail, you can click read more. And at the top here, there are different categories that you can look at depending on what you're interested in checking. You can also, just like you could on Snopes, you can type into the search bar some keywords on the story that you want to check. This is behind the headlines. It's on the NHS website. It's at nhs.uk/news. This is slightly different to the fact-checking websites I've shown you already. Behind the headlines looks at different health stories that appear in the news. And it doesn't make a verdict on whether something is true or false. What it does is it looks at where the story came from and the study or studies that the information is based on and how those studies were carried out. So the individual articles tend to start with what was reported, and then there's a section on where the story came from. And if it's available to read online, it tends to link you to it. And it looks to see if there are any differences in what was reported in the original study to what was reported in the news article. And it considers the original study and how robust that study was, and perhaps how relevant it is to UK practice. So there's various things they'll look at in the original study, such as the size of the study. It will consider the measures that were taken in the study to ensure reliability. So it can be really useful to look at if there's something in the news that you think, oh, well, this seems contradictory to what I know and what I understand, or to something I've read before. It's worth looking at behind the headlines to see if there's an evaluation of that health story. On the website, it's organised by the most recent article first. And there are categories on the left you can go to for stories on those topics. If you use the search bar though at the top, that will search the whole NHS site rather than just behind the headlines. I'm now going to show you how to perform a reverse image search. A reverse image search is where you use an image to search with rather than some keywords. The benefit of this is that you can see where else on the internet the image has been used. Some news stories you find online might carry images that look suspicious. Perhaps they don't look believable. Perhaps they look like they could have been faked. If you go to images.google.com, that will bring up this page. So it does still offer the text box here, but if you click on the camera icon, you can either paste a URL of an image, or you can upload an image from your computer, so something you've saved to your computer. I'm going to paste an image, and then click search by image. So this is the image I found of Boris Johnson sporting a haircut I've never seen him have before. So my instincts were that this had been edited on a computer. Now these keywords that appear here, Google has generated those, I've not typed those in. So it does mean that some of these results might come from those keywords that it's generated rather than the image itself. It's got a couple of results from The Guardian, and it's got visually similar images. So it's picked up things in this photo and found other photos that share some of those attributes. Now, I've looked at these two Guardian results already, and this photo doesn't appear on there, so I'm pretty sure those have just come up because of these automatically generated keywords. But if I click on all sizes of this image, I'll find something interesting. So the image I found is this one here, the second one along the top row. But I can see from all the photos next to it that the Prime Minister's standing in the same position, it's the same background, same tie, different haircut. So it's now apparent that the photo I searched for isn't a real photo. Whoever's made it has taken this image and edited it. This is an infographic from IFLA, the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions. The title is How to Spot Fake News, but all the steps mentioned apply to all misinformation. The first step is to consider the source. Click away from the story to investigate the site, its mission, and its contact info. So if you see something on social media, try and visit the website that it's come from and see what else has been published on that website. See if there's an about section, if it lists the authors, if it has a mission statement. Read beyond. Headlines can be outrageous in an effort to get clicks. What's the whole story? So yes, this relates to something I mentioned in the first video in this series, clickbait. So sometimes you get an outrageous headline that's just designed to get traffic to a website. The headline might not be an accurate representation of the article. It's always worth checking other sources to see if the information is presented differently elsewhere, or to see if the information differs between sources. Check the author. Do a quick search on the author. Are they credible? Are they real? Again, this is very easy. You can just go to Google and type in the author's name. I recommend doing a phrase search so that the first name and surname appears together, and you can see what websites have published articles by that author. You might even be able to see what qualifications they have or what areas they specialize in. Supporting sources. Click on those links. Determine if the info given actually supports the story. This is something I'm going to look at in the next section, which focuses on Wikipedia. So sometimes a reference list is given at the end of an article, but without looking at those references, we don't actually know if they support the statements within the article that you're reading. If it's related to health, it could be that what has been written is based on some scientific research. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that that research has been interpreted correctly. So I showed you NHS Behind the Headlines earlier, and how they evaluate the original research as well as what was said in the news story. Check the date. Reposting old news stories doesn't mean they're relevant to current events. So yes, it could be some information that was written years ago and it's no longer relevant. If it relates to health or scientific information, it might be that there has been more research undertaken since then that has found different results to a previous study. And in the first video in this series, I showed you on Google how to set date filters. So you could look at that again if you need to refresh your memory on how to do that. Is it a joke? If it is too outlandish, it may be satire. Research the site and the author to be sure. So sometimes a website could be presented as a genuine website. It might not be obvious that it's a satirical site. For example, there's a website called The Onion, which here is described as America's finest news source. It's presented very much like a news website, but it is actually a satirical website. And by reading the articles, you would become aware that they're designed to be humorous. But if you just found one of these articles on social media, you might not realize that it was a joke. Check your biases. Consider if your own beliefs could affect your judgment. So this is important, but it can be hard to do because sometimes we're not aware of our own biases. Earlier in this video, I mentioned that Mariana Spring suggested that if a piece of information you find online creates a strong emotional response, that you should really question that. And as she says, often accurate information is quite dull, it's quite boring. You might find information online that you either want to be true or don't want to be true. And that's why you have to check your biases. You have to be open-minded to the idea that the best evidence available might disprove your theory, and sometimes it might provide information that you weren't expecting to find, or perhaps didn't even want to find. Ask the experts, ask a librarian or consult a fact-checking site. I've shown you a couple of fact-checking sites in this video, and it's always worth remembering that librarians, we don't just issue books. You can ask us questions. If you're wanting to find good quality information, librarians can show you where to search and how to search effectively. In a video about misinformation, I think I should mention Wikipedia. I'm sure it's something most of us use from time to time. Often when you search Google, information from Wikipedia is presented predominantly. I'm going to search Google for information on medical equipment management. The last time I performed this search, there was a box at the top of the page linking me to the Wikipedia article. I'm not seeing that now, so obviously the results have been reordered. I'm just going to see if the article still appears on the first page. Yes, it does. It's lower down the page, but it's still there. So even if you don't deliberately search Wikipedia, you might get linked to it by searching on Google. In this section, I will consider how Wikipedia articles are written and edited. I will also show you various things you can look for to evaluate the reliability of a Wikipedia article. Wikipedia has 3 core content policies. The first is that articles should have a neutral point of view. The second relates to verifiability. Each statement should be supported by a reliable published source. The third is no original research. Wikipedia articles should be summaries of information. They're not places where somebody would publish original findings. Editors have the responsibility of ensuring these policies are adhered to, but since editors are volunteering their time, they can pick and choose what they do on Wikipedia, and some articles may not receive the attention they require. Who are the editors on Wikipedia? This article points out that Wikipedians or editors are the volunteers who write and edit Wikipedia's articles. Here is a list of different permissions that editors might have. These will be assigned based on the contributions that editors have made. On the right of this page, there are various graphs and statistics about the editors. Now, some of these are based on fairly old data. I think most people realize that anyone can add or edit information on Wikipedia, and therefore know that there is a chance some articles may contain information that isn't accurate. Nevertheless, if you are looking for information on a topic that you know very little about, it could be worth reading a Wikipedia article and looking at the sources of information that are used in the article. It might help you discover associated or alternative words that you could use to search elsewhere. Even though you'll only be using Wikipedia as a starting point, there are various page elements you can look at to make an assessment of the quality of the information. Articles on Wikipedia are sometimes assigned a grade which relates to the perceived quality of the article. The table you can see here shows the different grades available. The top grade is featured article status. At the bottom of the scale we have stub, which is just a basic description of the topic. The quality rating usually appears at the top right of the article. You can also click on Talk. Here there is more information about the article, and information about the quality rating, if there is one, would appear in this box. Here it says this page does not require a rating on the quality scale. This is because this article is about Wikipedia and how it works, so there won't be any external sources to reference. This is the Wikipedia article about Michelle Obama, and on the right there is the rating for this page. and it says this is a good article. If I click on the icon, I can read more about what a good article is. Next to the article rating, there is this padlock icon. That means this article is semi-protected. Again, if I click on that, there's more information about what semi-protection means on Wikipedia. And the main thing it means is that pages can't be edited by unregistered users. That's where you just see an IP address rather than a username. From the article page, I can click on View History. This is the revision history, so you can see all the revisions that have been made, the date and time, the user that made the changes, and usually there is a description of what change has been made. You can view the revision history for any article on Wikipedia, and although it doesn't give you an instant indication of reliability, you can see how often the page has been updated and how many different users have contributed to the page. And you might be able to identify if there's anything that looks particularly suspicious. So what should you look for if the article doesn't have a quality rating? Well, you can always view the revision history by clicking the View History tab, but there are other things you can look for in the main article page as well. You may remember that at the start of this section I searched Google for information on medical equipment management and I found an article on Wikipedia. You may have noticed at the top of that page there was an exclamation mark and some information in a box. I'm going to look at that more closely now. So this is the box. If you see an exclamation mark like this at the top of the page, always read the information in the box because it does tend to relate to the quality of the information on the page. Here it says this article includes a list of references, related reading or external links, but its sources remain unclear because it lacks inline citations. Usually at the end of a statement you see a number in brackets and that links you to a reference at the end. That's the inline citation, but here there aren't any. There is a list of references here at the end of the article, but because there aren't any inline citations in the article, we don't know where each bit of information came from. The note at the top here was placed on the page in March 2016, so it has been over 4 years since it was identified that there was an issue with this page, and yet nothing has been done to resolve it. Despite that, this Wikipedia article still appears on the first page of Google results for the term medical equipment management. So it just goes to show that even if something is on the first page of Google, it's not always good quality information. Even if an article has inline citations and a reference list, what we still don't know is what sources the people who wrote the article had access to. The article might be a good summary of the sources they found, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is based on the best evidence available. If you have access to article databases through a university or an employer, then you should make use of those. Public libraries may also subscribe to databases that you can access free of charge. The final thing I'm going to show you in this video is how to search certain types of website on Google. This is a good way of filtering out potential misinformation by limiting your search to credible websites. I'm going to use an example I used in the first video and search for information on 3D printing. Now, this is where I limit my search to certain types of websites. So I type in site and a colon, and I'm just wanting to find information from university websites. So I'm going to put ac.uk because that's how university websites end, .ac.uk. So I'm going to press enter. And I can see in the results, looking at the URLs, these are all university websites. Now I could do the same search, but just searching NHS websites. So if I delete AC and put in NHS, all NHS websites end in .nhs.uk. So this is bringing up now information from different NHS trusts, so I can see what other NHS trusts are doing in relation to 3D printing. Things to remember. Be aware of misinformation. I talked at the beginning of this video about misinformation and disinformation and the slight difference between the two. There are many ways you can identify misinformation, and the more time you can spend checking the information, the better. If in doubt, don't share. When you find information on social media, think before you share it. Don't immediately repost something because you think it's exciting or shocking. Think about how it makes you feel. Only share it if you can be sure that the information is correct. Use fact-checking websites. So this is one thing you can use to check information online. I showed you Snopes, Full Fact, and NHS Behind the Headlines. There are lots of things to consider, so there's too many really to list here, but I have covered quite a lot in this video about different things you can look at. I'd particularly recommend looking again at the IFLA infographic, which shows lots of different things to consider, including checking the author, checking the date, checking the information with another source, lots of things you can do. Try reverse image searches. So this is where you use an image to search with instead of text. And it will show you different websites that the image has been used on. And you might be able to use that information to identify if an image is real or not. Read notices on Wikipedia. In that section of the video, I showed you that some articles have a rating, some don't, but they might have information at the top that is particularly important because it might be information about the reliability of that article. You can limit searches to certain websites. So this is where on Google you can type the search terms you want to use, followed by site, colon, and you can use a specific website, or you can use the ending of a website like .nhs.uk or .ac.uk. That's the end of this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful. Look out for more videos from me on how to develop your search skills.